Hello.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Another day in my new lifestyle.
Yes. The new norm, as we
My
know it.
new norm. My new normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking today that we talk about some behaviors that I'm starting to really hear actually quite a bit from my patients, and I think it's stemming from fear, right? But it's obsessive thoughts and compulsive behaviors that people have gotten caught up with.
Mm.
And, so I thought, this would be actually a really good on point topic that we can talk about.
Yeah. I think
Is
that's a
that
really great, yeah, absolutely.
okay? So what I have been shared is that a couple of things. One is that people think that they have to listen to a lot of news because if they miss something, they feel like they've missed out on something big. Okay, which is clearly not the reality of it. I mean, these press conferences, even that are coming from the federal government, for example, are once a day. I mean, they're not constantly releasing news, right?
Mhm.
So that's one. The second thing is some people really fear leaving their house at all, like getting onto an elevator, getting into their car, going for a walk around the block. I had a patient today that told me they hadn't left the house in over 2.5 weeks, and I said, well, why don't you go walk around your neighborhood? And she's like, well, I'm afraid.
Mm.
And so that sort of stuff is definitely starting to come up, right?
Mhm.
Another thing is like this excessive washing of the hands and excessive and then there's also a lot of news that's or information that's being shared that's like simply not true, right? About like how this virus lives on this and that surface and how all of that, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of it is true and how much of it is not true. I
And
mean,
it's
I don't
constantly
have,
changing, like one day they say this, the next day, yeah, totally.
right? So, but inevitably, what has happened during this time is that based on the fear of either not contracting this or not, um, being a carrier and then passing it on, or whatever it may be, right, that we're faced with, people are obsessing over thoughts and compulsively behaving them, right? So
Mhm.
what that leads to, Anushka, is OCD, as like we use this term like it's nothing, but it's actually a psychological disorder that is not a joke, right? It like robs people of their lives because they're not productive anymore. They can't. It's very difficult for people who have OCD to be productive. It's really hard for them to enjoy life because they're constantly caught up in this obsessive thought and compulsive behavior. And people think that like OCD is like about constantly washing your hands. It actually isn't. You can be OCD about locking your house. Did I lock it? Did I not? You can be OCD about what people think about you,
Mhm.
right? So it's
Well, yeah,
just about obsessing over any type of a
right.
thought.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, it could start out as like, oh my gosh, I need to wash my hands and doing it excessively. And then once you start getting into that whole thought pattern, where it's like behind this fear, which we talked about yesterday, right? So fear is
Yeah,
already gonna stop, yeah, it's gonna stop our immune system. So that's already, like not the greatest thing we can do. But on top of it, it's like, well, once these behaviors start to get created, then how we do one thing is how we do everything. So, and then it's going to start bleeding into all areas of our life. And
right.
so, therefore, it becomes that disorder because then it's always in that whole pattern of what if blah, blah, blah. And that what if, as
Yeah.
soon as there's some kind of a fear associated to that, that's it, and it's all future based. But these thoughts are typically, it's like, what if something happens to me? And it's typically something future, right? So it's not even real.
Mhm, 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 absolutely. So, I mean, I feel that it is really important right now for us to concentrate and be in the present moment and maybe even review some of these behaviors that we have, right?
Mhm.
So, and then remember, so we're at home, right? And if we have these behaviors and we day in and day out and day in and day out, and initially we think, oh, this is just something that I have to do at this particular moment in time. But in all reality, when you've now engaged in the behavior for so many days, guess what? You just created a pattern,
Yep.
right? So the
And it
mind
becomes
adjusts.
unconscious pretty much, or even
Absolutely.
subconscious, because you're like, at that point, it's
Mhm.
just automatically run. You're
Exactly.
blinded to it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like, let's catch it. Let's get the awareness now before it becomes that.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And that really becomes what's the most important thing, that we have to really kind of be in the present moment and recognize, what am I doing? Again, we go back to that, what I always say, we don't want to create more problems. We're already faced with a lot of challenges. We certainly don't want to create more problems. So,
Yeah. Love this. I'm really glad that we talked about this because, yes, I've been noticing people actually feeling this way where they're just constantly being, even me, I notice this sometimes where I'm like, with my husband, I'm like, did you take your shoes off? Did you wash your hands? And I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? So love this. I love that we brought this up. I think it's
yeah.
very important for
Right.
everyone. Yay. Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. See you then.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.